Hey everybody, thanks for coming to another episode of My Angular Story. I'm the host, Aaron Frost, and today, as our guest, the person we're going to get to know better is Philip Fulcher. Go ahead and say hi, Phil.
Hey, it's great to be here.
This episode is sponsored by Sentry.io. Recently, I came across a great tool for tracking and monitoring problems in my apps. Then I asked them if they wanted to sponsor the show and allow me to share my experience with you. Sentry provides a terrific interface for keeping track of what's going on with my app. It also tracks releases so I can tell if what I deployed makes things better or worse. They give full stack traces and as much information as possible about the situation when the error occurred to help you track down the errors. Plus, one thing I love, you can customize the context provided by Sentry. So, if you're looking for specific information about the request, you can provide it. It automatically scrubs passwords and secure information, and you can customize the scrubbing as well. Finally, it has a user feedback system built in that you can use to get information from your users. Oh, and I also love that they support open source to the point where they actually open sourced Sentry if you want to self-host it. Use the code DevChat at Sentry.io to get 2 months free on Sentry's small plan. That's code DevChat at Sentry.io.
So I asked some of the hosts of Adventures in Angular podcast to kind of, hey, find some people that you think are interesting and let's get them on the My Angular Story podcast so that we can kind of get to know a wider set of people across the Angular community rather than just, my friends. So Brian was like, hey, I got this guy, really interesting. His name's Phil.
Yeah.
Why don't you get him on the show? And because I've worked with Brian, actually, me and you have kind of bumped elbows a couple times, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so just, I guess, kind of explain for everybody listening who you are, like where are you at in the community?
Mm-hmm. Brian Love and I know each other through Breebug, and it kind of feels like everybody in the Angular community knows each other through Breebug. They're one of those great connectors, right? Like Jesse Sanders wants to know everybody and talk to everybody, and he's a really great guy and makes really great connections with everybody. So my company that I work for, it's called Hach. We're pretty big. You've probably never heard of us, but we focus in like water quality instrumentation and data. So we're everywhere in like drinking water plants and wastewater plants, but you wouldn't hear about us much outside of that.
That's Hach, spelled Hach, right?
Yes, Hach.
Okay.
So Brian worked with us on a contract through Breebug, and honestly, just like having Breebug as a contractor has been great for us. We've gotten to know so many different people in the community, and just about everyone who's worked with me through Breebug has like said, "Hey, you need to get out in the community. You need to start like going to meetups. You need to start talking to folks," and that's really started to happen this year. I think Brian had invited me down to the Rocky Mountain Angular meetup a couple times in Denver, and Bonnie Brennan, who's working with them right now, finally got me to do a conference talk at the Angular Denver this year. So, it's really been great getting to come out and share with the community some of the things that we're learning. Bonnie's
one of the most like socially vibrant people in the community, right? Like she's just, you meet her and all of a sudden you have a new friend.
Yeah. Bonnie's your friend, and now you also have her friends. So she starts like farming you out, and I know at Angular Denver, she just had like a literal line of people like lined up in front of me trying to tell me how to solve this problem that she had seen. I was like, I don't know, Bonnie. And she's like, well, if you don't believe me, believe these like 5 people that I have in a line to convince you. And so that was a really cool conversation. That was like the best hallway track conversation I've ever had. It's just like this big group of people just kind of putting their heads together.
Yeah.
And that's been really cool to come out and get to see.
That's my favorite part of conferences is the people you meet. At first, when I started going to conferences, it was like, these talks are pretty awesome. And I spent a lot of time like focusing on getting the exact talk. And then I can't remember why, a couple times I just missed a session. Mm-hmm. And then you're out in the hall and it's dead. And you're like meeting the speakers and like the other people. And it's like, wow, this is great. Or you sit in the lobby late at night. It's 1 a.m. You're in the lobby, and like Shai Resnick wants to just hang out with you, or Ward Bell. and you're like, this is how you do it. So
yeah. I know at Angular Denver, I happened to be leaving the speaker dinner at the same time as Joe Eames, and so like he and I walked back to the hotel together. Brian Love was there in the hotel lobby, so we hung out with him for a little bit, and John Rista, also from Rebug, was like in the mix. So it's really, really cool to just like get to walk around and talk to these folks. Angular Denver was probably like the first conference that I've been to where I got to have that hallway track experience. Like I've been to JSConf once, and I've been to a couple of other smaller conferences, but it's really easy, especially when you're an introvert, to just like go and like camp out in a track and not talk to anyone, and that's its own conference experience. And I think it's one that a lot of people have, but I see now where you're missing out on a lot of the value. Like go out and talk to folks. That's where you're going to make connections, and that's where you're going to solve your next problem. Like it's great to hear a session and you can learn a lot of great things, but like later on when you need someone's eyeballs on this problem, like having that relationship with someone from a conference is where you're going to get that.
Totally. So let me ask you a question. You gave your first talk this year.
I sure did.
You seem like a pretty good programmer, and you just barely gave your first talk. So why don't you, I know there's a lot of people out there listening who are like you. They're smart, they're good developers. They make decisions that matter and affect the company and their teams. But they're not big at getting out and sharing. So can you kind of explain what that was like to go through your first speaker process?
Yeah. So I was really lucky to get to work with Bonnie. You know, she's a very well accomplished speaker, and is at the majority of these Angular conferences. And so, especially getting to work with her, we kind of set out, and honestly, both of us, the way that we came to our topic, it was an introduction to Bazel, and neither of us had actually used it before. Bonnie was going to use the opportunity to learn it, and at work we're having really, really slow build times. And I'd kind of heard, once you have like a large enough application, Bazel is, a way to get some of those things down, to have those partial rebuilds instead of rebuilding your application every time you make a change. So I had wanted to learn about it. And so we both took this opportunity to learn. So there was a huge chunk of this that was just like, what a great excuse to like dig down into a topic and learn about it. I've definitely found like the best way of actually learning something is to teach it. And I think there's a lot of research that backs that up too, on if you have to understand something well enough to be able to explain it to someone, you just fundamentally have a deeper understanding of it. So we started out and we only had a 10-minute talk. And when she asked me to come on stage, and I was like, okay, it's like two people giving one conference talk that's 10 minutes. How much work could this possibly be? And it turns out it's a lot more work than I expected. I think we ended up producing enough content for like a 20 or 30-minute talk. And the last couple of weeks before the conference were spent just like cutting it down and cutting it down and cutting it down, and going down, I really want to get into this example, but it's too complex for 10 minutes. We've got to sort of like cut to the heart of it. And to your point of like Bonnie knows everybody, Bonnie also got our talk notes in front of, I think, Mishko from the core team, and someone else whose name I don't remember, unfortunately. But, we got feedback from folks, and we're able to get that through. So I think the biggest thing was it was more work, but it was like really, really like fulfilling work. It was fun to get to learn the a brand new subject and figure out, what are the important parts of this, and what do other folks need to know, and how could they get started with Bazel. So that was excellent. We ended up practicing. Bonnie and I don't live in the same city, and so I don't think we got to go through the talk with each other until we got there. And I noticed like that was not an uncommon occurrence when folks were giving conference talks together. I think what keeps people out of that, and what kept me out of wanting to do that for a while, was I don't know what other people don't know. Like, I don't know what is going to be beneficial to the community. And it turns out that if you've just like solved a really hard problem or you've learned something new, your voice is valuable, and you don't have to be an expert and you don't have to know everything there is about the subject. I think, a great experience that I had and just, a good indication of where the Angular community is, I got done with my talk and I did this like introduction to Bazel, and I sat down and some folks were asking me some questions. And a lot of times when you're just at a conference, you kind of assume, oh, this speaker knows everything about what they just talked about.
Yeah, this speaker's the best. Yeah.
They've known this forever and they're just like picking out a piece. But I sat down next to like Mike Brocky, and Mike is like, hey, so I'm using Bazel right now and we're doing like X, Y, and Z. Have you done anything with that? And I was like, no, actually. And it's like as soon as I sat down, I immediately realized, oh no, I'm not even the person who knows the most about Bazel in this room.
Oh yeah.
But we got to have like a really, really great conversation, and it became a reason for us to talk. Like when I was saying, like you can go to a conference and not talk to people. It's really scary, but a great excuse to have people come up and talk to you is to be a speaker. Like they have a reason to come talk to you, and it's not you trying to like strike up a conversation with a stranger. So you can figure out what's scarier, like talking to a stranger or being on stage. And I guess you can pick one of those two, and you'll start to get conversations going at conferences.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have as a goal for devchat.tv is to cover technologies that are up and coming, things that we're probably going to have to deal with on a more regular basis in the future. Some of these include AI, VR, and one of them is blockchain. So I reached out to one of the experts that I knew, Gregory McCubbin, and we pulled together a few other people, and we've started a podcast called Adventures in Blockchain. So if you're looking at blockchain as something that you may want to work in, something that you're curious about learning more about, or something that you just want to keep current on until you have the opportunity to make a career jump and go over and work in blockchain and crypto, then definitely check out Adventures in Blockchain. You can find it at adventuresinblockchain.io.
It is tough. Sometimes when you go give a talk,
Mm-hmm.
you're giving that intro to a topic talk, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're learning enough to pitch an intro talk,
Mm-hmm.
and then everyone assumes that you're the expert, that's brutal, right? Because you're like, I just barely got up to the level to teach this. And then, but it's good that you said that, because you don't have to know everything about the topic in order to get up and give a talk about it, right?
Yeah.
If you called your talk Advanced Bazel Builds, okay, the audience is going to expect something different, and you better get up. You better become the expert like today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if your talk is getting started with Bazel, okay, that's a completely different expectation for the listener, for the presenter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So a couple of things you said, I wanted to ask a couple of questions, just because I think people will have this question. A lot of people get confused. So you didn't know Bazel before you submitted your talk?
No, and I didn't even submit the talk. Like Bonnie did that, and then I kind of piggybacked with her. She invited me in to be able to do that with her. So yeah, you also don't have to even know very much at all to submit a conference talk on something.
Yeah, and that's not even about conference talks. Like that's some meetup talks. That's even some intro blog posts. You can be largely, but the important thing is that you can submit without knowing it, right?
Yeah.
If you're dedicated to learning it, cool. You don't have to know it today, but if you get accepted, you're gonna have to learn it. So you talked about then, me and Bonnie, we started working through our content. I think another misconception is that you didn't work on your content until after you've been accepted. True?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you didn't like submit this talk, you cross your fingers and start preparing it before you got accepted. I think a lot of people expect that they need to have a lot of work into it just to submit the idea. And I'm only asking because I want you to kind of explain how uncomplicated it was to get accepted and how little went into getting to that real crucial step, which is can I get accepted?
Yeah, I had it easy because Bonnie is actually the one who got accepted. Like she had put this conference talk in like a couple of months before I had even met her, and so like I kind of got to go along with that. So the easiest way to get accepted to a conference is definitely go find someone else who already has, and then ride their coattails. But I'll tell you that what it's done for me is like unlocked like this whole thing of, well, I can submit a conference proposal now. Like I don't even need to know that much. I put in a conference proposal just the other day ago for JSConf Hawaiʻi, and it's like that's a really big conference. But what's the worst that can happen? Worst thing that can happen is they say no, and it's like okay, that took me like an evening of putting together an abstract and a title. I'll also say that even as we, like I said, when we were going through our content, not only did we not have it prepared before we submitted the talk, like it changed so many times. Like we went back and forth on like, what's the main gist of this? And especially giving a 10-minute talk, there's a lot of times where you thought, I think I can get through this in 10 minutes. And you can't. We were timing ourselves and coming in at like 15, 20 minutes and knowing that we were like way over and things going to get shot. Oh, super duper over.
And conference organizers, depending on the conference, usually aren't pumped when you go over because there's usually a talk before you.
Yep.
That needs to end on time so you can start on time. And then there's usually a talk after you.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone's pretty lined up. Like you need to end and start. You need to start and end on time, right?
Yeah, that was something that Bonnie was like super serious about. Like, we could completely bomb on the content of this presentation, but as long as we end on time, no one will be mad at us. Okay. Like that's the killer part is like start and end on time and everyone will be happier with you. You can get feedback later on like what, on the content and things like that, but end on time or you're going to like ruin someone's day.
That's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me laugh actually. That I mean it's true though. Like you do need to be super clock aware.
Mm-hmm.
I've been at conferences that don't have a countdown timer, and so you're like, whoa. Am I gonna go over? I get really nervous. I'm gonna go over. So I usually am like, hey, I need you to time me, and when I got 2 minutes left, I need you to wave at me.
Yeah.
So, all right. So now you've kind of gone through this with Bonnie. Bonnie, largely she was kind of like the lead on this talk.
Yeah.
But now you're ready to go give talks.
I am.
Oh, cool.
I'm planning on putting something in for JSConf this year. That CFP just opened, so everybody get your. I don't know when this will release, but when we're recording, it just opened up a day or two ago. So everybody go get your proposals in.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think the what I'm seeing now is there's a lot of times where I am solving a difficult problem at work, and I just think, I bet someone else doesn't know how to solve this, and it would be helpful if I let them know like what my solution was. And it's not even that my solution is right, but just getting that solution
solution.
It is a solution to a problem.
But that's big.
It's big. And what might even be more useful to the community is not, this is the one solution that I went with. Here's the 5 solutions that I definitely didn't work. And let me tell you why you shouldn't go down that path. I think when you're trying to figure out what to talk and what to bring to, you kind of get into this bias loop of like, oh, everybody already knows that. Or if I figured it out, then someone else has probably figured it out. And especially if you've been into Angular and AngularJS for a while and you're seeing what's happening in the community and what folks are talking about, you might think, oh, everybody already knows about that. But we have new developers coming into the community all the time, and they're hungry to hear some of this stuff that we might think is sort of old hat of, I know that you while you were at Angular Denver, you did a great talk on RxJS and just how important that is. And that was something where it's like, I've been doing Angular for, like more than 2 years now, and like RxJS is like our bread and butter. Like we don't have problems with that anymore.
Yeah.
We understand it fairly well, but it's so essential and it's so important that there's still a need out there for like, intro to RxJS, or like, why is RxJS important? And that's why we, you kind of see that kind of talk happen every year, because someone new needs to hear that, and they need to, and sometimes it's like you can go back to old NGConfs and like pick up on the YouTube recordings of that thing. But sometimes we figured out like newer, better ways of doing things, and it's still like fairly, beginner level stuff, but someone needs to hear it, and you might be able to explain it in a way that they've never heard before. And so just the fact that you're a new, different person saying it could be like what unlocks it for someone else.
Yeah. One thing I've learned through just being in the community and being active in it is, and sometimes when you get involved in like community leading, you start to see trends. The trends we get a little more clear than they are if you're just like, you're just cruising on Twitter, but not really doing much. The trends, you still pick up trends by cruising Twitter, but when you're giving talks and going to conferences and presenting at meetups and going to meetups and writing blogs and reading blogs and answering Stack Overflow questions and asking Stack Overflow questions and, doing video courses, whatever you're doing, you start to see the trends a little bit more. And the trends, it's really important as a developer to see the trends, because if you like here, I'll give an example of a trend. When Angular was new, Angular 2 had been released, everyone did these tutorials on how to learn Angular, and you'd do an HTTP call, and then everyone was like, no one really knew, even the teachers knew RxJS. So they're like,
right.
So do this call and then do .2 promise. And like, you just turned everything back into a promise,
Yep.
And largely everyone did that. Like every tutorial, there wasn't one that did it really. And then people started changing, and they're like, no, we need to focus more on RX. And now RX is the quintessential skill for Angular programmers, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So if you're not watching, you don't notice. And so you still write things the wrong way or the old way, And so it is important to evolve with the technology that you don't have to be ahead of the curve.
No.
You don't have to be ahead of it, but you do need to be with, the community.
Yeah, when I learned Angular, I was lucky enough for my company actually sent me to a workshop run. It was John Papa and Joe Eames and Dan Wallin. It was a really, really great course, and this was probably in like 2017. I think Angular 4 released in the middle of our workshop. But even at that, really, really high level thinkers, big names in the community, I hope they don't get mad, but they did tell me at that point, like, this async pipe thing, I don't know. It's kind of hard to debug. I don't know if you should be using it. And, they were transforming all of their observables to promises as well. And then, I know in my own learning, like I did that for a little bit. And then I thought, well, let me give this RxJS a try. And what it turned into was, I just subscribed to things instead of using a then like you would have on a promise. And like, that was kind of where my understanding of it ended. And then it was like, wait, I think I could use like a pipe here and like maybe map something out. And, I actually need to combine these two observable streams. And like that sort of unlocked the power for me of RxJS. And that's something that's happened in the community. And if you didn't see it like last year or a year or two ago, you're just like, you're running a little behind, and especially when you're in some sort of leadership position, I think you've kind of got to have your eye out on like what's next. What do I need to be building towards right now? Probably the next big thing in our community is everybody's pointing to Ivy and what the changes are going to be like after that. And I think you've really got to have your eye on that kind of stuff to be prepared for it, or you're going to get caught flat-footed. And it's not that you can't learn it as you go, but you're going to make yourself successful and you're going to make your team so much more successful if you can see that kind of stuff coming.
Totally. That's 100% true.
Adventures in Angular is a DevChat.tv production made in partnership with Hero Devs. Hero Devs is a group of Angular experts who can help your team code like true developer heroes. If your team needs an Angular expert, reach out to Aaron at hero.dev today.
One of the questions that pretty much everyone I've consulted with asks is, how do you stay current? And I'm like, I don't even really try that hard. Like, I go to meetups, I follow people on Twitter. If they say something's important, I'll click on it and read it. I'll give a talk like you about things maybe I don't always understand, or maybe sometimes I really understand them. I'll give that advanced talk. But it is ironic. It is weird to me sometimes to go into a team where there are senior engineers and principals and say, hey, where do you guys stay up to date? And they're like, the documentation. I'm like, that's not a real answer. It is ironic the amount of developers who, I don't know, and I'm not trying to shame because we're all different, but they don't actively engage in cruising, the latest stuff in what they're doing. So it is weird.
Yeah, and I think a good team almost needs like a mix of those sorts of people. Like some of my favorite colleagues are the people who they come in and they work 40 hours and then they leave, and they're pretty happy with that. But in those 40 hours, they're going to knock out code. And, if I suggest a new way of doing things, they'll do it. And, as a lead, like I'm kind of out in front, like trying to watch the trends and talk about, this might be a good solution to this problem. And, I think I have a lot of folks who kind of follow behind that and, trust me to sort of make those decisions. They're learning their own things, but we don't, with that combination of I'm really good at learning and like seeing these trends, but the truth is I'm not that fast of a developer. Like I'm not, like I sit down, and especially now that I'm in a more leadership role, like I don't actually sit down at the keyboard as often as I used to. And so if you were to give me something to code, like I'm not going to do it as fast as some of these guys who just can like come in and just like knock it out. And I think that's what I look for in a team is like, there's got to be like, not everybody can try to be a leader all at the same time. I think people have to take responsibility for their particular domains. But if you have everybody coming in and trying to say like, I saw this blog post and I saw this other thing on Twitter and this is the way we should be doing it, like it's going to be like herding cats trying to get everybody aligned. And so I still really appreciate the folks like who aren't at meetups or who aren't, following things on Twitter. They can go get good at really, just like day-to-day work of just getting in and knocking out the code.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance. I certainly would encourage more than half the developers, though, to stay current. It's almost like when a farmer vaccinates the cattle. They don't have to vaccinate all of them. They just have to vaccinate most of them. And then usually they'll be fine. And if you have a team of, let's say you have 50 developers, if most of them are current and helping bring new patterns in and vocalize trends and learnings from the community, then the team should be good. But if you have a team where no one's doing that, that's where it's like, we got to get into a bit more where we have some more general people. Like generally, we're more up to speed. We can't put it all on one or two people. So
yeah, and I think I absolutely agree, and I think for different team members need to be good at different things. Especially like as we talk about like how do we see conference speakers and what stops us from going to conferences? Like we really look at these speakers and think, oh man, they know everything. Like they're the world's greatest Angular developer. And I think too often, like we get other developers who start to think, I've got to stay up on everything. Like I've got to know the latest TypeScript and RxJS and NGRX, and I've got to know the latest on all of those. And I don't think that's true. Like I think you can develop those skills within your team and all lean on each other to be able to pick up on those things. Not everyone has to be an expert at everything for your team to be very successful.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think like, what you were saying, like, in terms of like how I keep current, it's very much like that where, I follow a bunch of people on Twitter who all talk about Angular, and I'll just like pay attention. Like if 5 different people are retweeting the same article, like that's probably a pretty good article. I should probably go see what it is. Or if you can like start to see things like pick up over time, like I'm maybe a little behind the wave on GraphQL becoming extremely popular on the back end and how to incorporate that into Angular. So, that's something I'm trying to go back and sort of catch up on because it keeps coming up over and over again. You'll see some things that are like, this article was really popular for a week and then nobody talked about it again. But there's certain sort of evergreen stuff that keeps coming back. And that's the stuff that you've really got to focus in on and pay attention. And it's, I would already be on Twitter checking like what other Twitter users have to say, which is often not very much or not very kind, but every now and then there's Angular stuff in there and it's good.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so we're kind of bumping up on time. So I'm going to move to a segment of the show called Picks. Have you ever listened to the podcast and seen that we kind of pick something? All right.
I got my picks ready to go.
All right. So I'm going to do a pick. The pick is being nice on Stack Overflow. People who are nice on Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow's got a lot of weird stuff going on sometimes. And like a week or so ago, something happened and I tweeted about it. And then my Stack Overflow kind of took off because people were joking with me on Stack Overflow anonymously. And I was laughing about it. But it kind of got me back in. And I started answering a couple questions. And I was on there and there was this developer who was obviously new based on the question they were asking. Mm-hmm. And they had some code and they couldn't tell why it wasn't working. They simply weren't calling the function they had written. So they had a function that they weren't calling. And so by the time I saw the question, other Stack Overflowers had closed it and said that, it didn't have a desired outcome specified. And I was like, what? Like the code's working. He just isn't calling it. Like, what do you do? Anyway. And so it's just like, just tell him to call the function already. Right. Yeah. Anyway, I just was so frustrated that people are just like so unforgiving to the newest of developers.
Right.
Like the people with the most important questions, like the ones who are most needy of the answer. These are the ones we're going to be the most stringent with. Like, I don't know. Yeah. So I guess I'll just say being nice to people, especially the newer people on Stack Overflow. So that's my pick. People who are nice to them.
Awesome. So my pick will be, so I actually want to talk about a couple of things and I'm going with non-technical picks because I'm so excited, but I very, very often just like find myself just like picking up new hobbies or interests just because it's something that I can learn about and someone is willing to teach me. And so like the cool new thing that I'm super into now on the weekends is watching Formula One racing. And it's only because there's a documentary on Netflix called Drive to Survive. Everybody should check it out. It's really, really good. It follows a Formula One season through 2018, teaches you a little bit about like the rules and how it works. And then there's another podcast called Shift F1. And they have like a primer episode at the beginning of every season that'll talk to you about like, what are the rule changes this year? Like, how do the cars work? Who are the drivers that you should be watching? And Formula One is like so small. It's like 20 drivers on 10 teams. Like it's not like the NBA or the NFL. Like you could know everything there is to know about every single one of these drivers every season. I think it's really cool. And I think it's really cool to learn about this sort of stuff, kind of like what we're talking about with conferences of it's like so many people assume that so many people know things about like certain sports that no one ever bothers to explain them again. And Formula One doesn't have that luxury because it's so much smaller, especially in America compared to other sports. And so getting an opportunity for someone to like sit down and assume that I've never watched this, boy, what I wouldn't give for someone to actually explain to me how to watch a basketball game. I love basketball. Like I grew up in North Carolina. College basketball is like, life to us, but I can't actually tell you what certain things in basketball are. I'm just like happy when my team scores and the other team doesn't. But with like someone actually sitting down and like showing you like, okay, here's the rules and like, here's why the car does this or why the driver wants to do this. Like it's invaluable. And I just love learning about new stuff. It's a really cool little niche thing, and it's really low commitment. And when you're spending so much time learning about how to be better at your job, how to be a better developer, like trying to get out in the community, it's nice to sort of sit down and like, I want to learn, but like really low stakes learning right now.
Yeah, totally. So was that your only pick, or I thought you said had two, or was that it?
The Netflix documentary and Drive to Survive. There should be a second season coming up next year, and then the podcast, Shift F1. Those are my picks.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing. If anyone wants to reach out to you, if they have any questions, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can hit me on Twitter. That is Philip at Philip J. Fulcher. I have a lot of diverse content in my Twitter feed, I'll say. It's not just going to be Angular stuff, so get ready.
Okay, cool. Cool. So if anyone wants to reach out to him, Philip J. Fulcher on Twitter.
Yep.
Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing, talking about you, teaching us about, submitting to be a conference speaker.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming on, being a guest. And then to the listeners, I will say thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.
Thanks.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFL